The battlefield was filled with smoke, fire, and the sound of dying soldiers. The human soldier moved slowly through the ruins, his weapon ready, his eyes searching for any movement. He was tired, his uniform torn, his hands covered in dirt and blood. He had survived when many of his men had fallen, and now only silence surrounded him. Then he heard a sound, faint breathing coming from behind the wreck of a burned-out vehicle. He moved carefully and pointed his rifle. What he saw made him freeze. An alien girl lay on the ground, her wrists bound by broken chains, her face pale but her eyes burning with defiance. Her species was known for their cruelty, for ambushing humans and showing no mercy. She looked young but dangerous, her body tense even in her weakened state. The soldier knew at once that she was not an ordinary prisoner. She was an enemy warrior. Everyone knew what should be done. She should be killed before she recovered her strength. That was the rule, the safe choice. The girl stared up at him with sharp, cold eyes. Her lips curved into a mocking smile. "Do it," she said in her language, her voice shaking but steady enough to carry the challenge. "Kill me like your kind always does." She spat blood on the ground, her chest rising and falling quickly, yet her pride stood tall even in defeat. She waited for the end, ready for the bullet, ready to meet death. The soldier's finger rested on the trigger, but he did not fire. He stood there, frozen in place, his heart beating harder than it should. He had seen too many deaths already. He had killed when he needed to, but this moment felt different. The girl looked fragile, broken by battle, and still she refused to beg. Something in her eyes was not just hatred, it was pain. He saw it for a second before she quickly hid it behind anger. The silence stretched. The alien narrowed her eyes in confusion. "What are you waiting for?" she asked with bitterness. "Are humans so weak they cannot even finish an enemy?" Her voice was sharp, but her hands trembled. She thought he was playing with her before the final shot. Instead of shooting, the human slowly lowered his weapon. His decision was reckless, even foolish. He knew his commanders would call him a traitor for sparing her. He knew his fellow soldiers would never understand. But something inside him refused to pull the trigger. He could not explain it, even to himself. He only knew one thing: killing her felt wrong. The alien's mocking smile faded. She blinked, trying to read his face. This was not what she expected. Her heart pounded, though she tried to hide it. "You hesitate?" she whispered almost to herself. "Why?" She could not believe it. No human had ever shown mercy to her kind, not after the war, not after so much blood had been spilled. The soldier took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small canteen of water. Without a word, he tossed it toward her. The metal container landed near her bound hands. She looked at it, then at him, suspicion flashing in her eyes. She thought it might be poisoned or a cruel joke. But her throat burned with thirst, and finally she lifted it with shaking fingers. The first sip hit her like fire and relief, and she hated herself for needing it. "You should have killed me," she said after a long pause, her voice quieter now. Her eyes met his again, no longer mocking, but searching. She wanted to know what he was thinking, why he was doing this. But the soldier gave no answer. He only looked away, scanning the ruined street, making sure no one else was near. He was breaking the unspoken law by letting her live, and he knew danger surrounded them both. The alien's chest tightened with a strange feeling she could not name. She had expected cruelty, torture, or death. Instead, she saw something alien to her: mercy. It left her unsettled, angry even, because mercy was not part of war. Mercy was weakness, or at least that was what she had been taught all her life. Her eyes narrowed again as she forced her voice to be strong. "If you think this kindness will save you, human, you are wrong. I will kill you the moment I can." Her words were sharp, but they shook slightly. She needed to say them, to protect the last piece of her pride. The soldier looked at her for a moment, then simply nodded. He did not argue, did not speak. It was as if her threat did not matter. He turned his gaze to the road ahead, gripping his rifle but never raising it against her. His silence was heavier than words, more confusing than kindness. The alien lay back against the cold ground, clutching the canteen. Her mind raced, her body trembling, not from fear, but from the unknown. She had been ready to die, ready to face the end. Instead, she was alive, and she could not understand why. The human had changed everything with a single choice, and it left her speechless. The wind howled through the broken ruins, carrying the scent of smoke and blood. The war was not over, and danger was still close. But in that ruined street, between a tired human soldier and a captured alien girl, something had begun that neither of them could explain. And for the first time, she realized death might have been easier than what was coming next. The night was cold, and the ruins were silent except for the distant crackle of fire and the low moans of broken buildings collapsing under their own weight. The human soldier sat near a wall, his rifle resting across his knees. The alien girl lay a few steps away, her arms still bound but her eyes open, watching him like a predator. She hated that she had accepted water from him. She hated more that she was still alive. Her pride screamed at her to curse him, but her body was weak and her mind was trapped between fear and confusion. He had every chance to kill her. He still did. Yet he didn't. That choice felt heavier with every passing second. The human had risked not only his life, but his honor as a soldier. If his commanders found out, he would be punished, maybe even executed. Everyone knew what the rule was: no prisoners of her kind. They were considered too dangerous, too untrustworthy. But here he was, sitting beside her as if guarding something important, as if she mattered. The girl finally broke the silence. "Why are you keeping me alive?" Her voice carried anger, but underneath was something else. Curiosity she could not kill. She expected a quick answer, some excuse, maybe a smug explanation. But the soldier didn't look at her. He stayed quiet, staring at the broken road as if searching for answers there. Her lips pressed together. The silence burned more than insults. "You're a fool," she said at last. "Your people will spit on you for this. They will call you weak." He turned his head slowly, his eyes calm and steady. "Maybe," he said simply. That single word cut through her like a blade. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't defending himself. He accepted it, and that made it worse. The alien girl shifted uncomfortably, her chains clinking against the ground. She thought of her own people. If she returned to them alive after being spared by a human, she would be called a disgrace. Mercy was weakness. To be spared was humiliation. And yet, she couldn't deny that a small part of her was relieved. That relief made her angry. Hours passed as they both sat in silence. Then the human stood up. His movements were slow, careful. He walked to her and crouched down. She tensed, ready for pain or death. Instead, he pulled a knife from his belt, not to strike her, but to cut the chain between her wrists. Her hands dropped free, red marks left on her skin. She stared at them in shock, then at him. "Why?" she whispered again, her voice breaking against her will. He didn't answer. He only handed her a small piece of dried food from his pack. It was nothing more than rations, hard and tasteless, but to her it looked like a luxury. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but she forced herself to glare at him instead of eating. Accepting food from the enemy felt like surrender. But her stomach betrayed her, growling so loudly that even he heard it. His lips curved in the smallest, faintest smile, not of mockery but of understanding. She grabbed the food angrily and ate, chewing as if it were a battle itself. Every bite tasted like defeat, yet also life. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and looked away. "Do not think this means anything," she said bitterly. "The first chance I get, I will cut your throat." He nodded again, his calmness like stone. "I know." The words left her more unsettled than any threat. He knew she hated him. He knew she might betray him. Yet he still spared her. She had no answer for that, no weapon strong enough to pierce that kind of trust. Later, as the moon rose, footsteps echoed in the distance. The human's body stiffened. He signaled her to stay silent. She almost laughed. What choice did she have? But when armed, human soldiers appeared from the shadows, she felt her chest tighten. They looked at her with sharp eyes, hands tightening on their weapons. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his face, pointed. "Why is she alive?" His voice was full of anger. "You know the order. Kill them where they stand." The human soldier stood tall, blocking their view of her. "She's injured. She's no threat now." The scarred soldier spat on the ground. "No threat? You don't know what they're capable of. I've seen one tear a man's throat out with her bare teeth." He raised his rifle. "Step aside." The alien girl's heart raced. She should have welcomed it, should have accepted death. Yet now, with the barrel pointed at her, she found herself waiting, not for the shot, but for what the human would do. He did not move. His body was a wall between her and their weapons. His voice was firm. "She stays with me." The other soldiers muttered angrily. The scarred man's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this. Command won't protect you." The human's jaw tightened, but he did not step aside. Slowly, after a tense silence, the other soldiers lowered their weapons. The scarred one spat again and walked away, muttering curses under his breath. The alien girl sat frozen, staring at the human's back. He had defied his own people for her. He had chosen to risk his life, his honor, everything, just to keep her alive. Her throat felt dry again, but not from thirst this time. When the soldiers were gone, he sat down once more, his weapon across his knees. The girl's voice was low, almost too soft to hear. "You should have killed me." But in her heart, she realized that for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted him to. The morning came with a red sky, the ruins glowing under the first light. The human soldier and the alien girl had not slept much. She sat against a cracked wall, her eyes half closed, but never letting go of her watchfulness. He stayed near her, rifle in his hands, scanning the horizon. The silence between them had grown heavier, filled with unspoken questions. She still did not understand why he spared her, and he did not explain. They began to move through the broken streets, the soldier guiding her. Her legs were weak, and more than once she stumbled. Each time she fell, she expected him to drag her or leave her behind. Instead, he pulled her back to her feet without a word. The small acts of help made her chest tighten with anger and something else she could not name. She told herself it was insult, but deep down, she felt the stir of unwanted respect. The ruins were not safe. The war had left hidden traps, roaming patrols, and scavengers who killed anyone for food or weapons. As they walked, the soldier's eyes kept scanning every shadow. His body was tense, his finger always close to the trigger. The alien girl noticed how careful he was, not just for himself, but for her too. That realization disturbed her more than the danger around them. By midday, the sound of engines filled the air. Enemy patrols. The soldier grabbed her wrist and pulled her into the nearest building that its walls half collapsed. Dust rose as they hid behind the rubble. She wanted to pull her hand away, but didn't. The grip was firm, steady, protective. The patrol drew closer, armored vehicles grinding over stone and broken metal. Voices shouted orders in the alien tongue, her people's tongue. For a moment, her heart leapt. If they found her, she would be rescued. She could escape this strange human mercy that felt heavier than chains. But another thought came. Quick and sharp, if they found her, they would ask why she was still alive. They would see her weakness. They might not welcome her back at all. The soldier leaned close, whispering, "Stay quiet." His breath brushed her ear, and for the first time she noticed the steadiness of his voice. No fear, only focus. He was ready to fight if discovered, even if the odds were hopeless. She should have hated that closeness, hated the control in his command, but instead, she stayed silent. The vehicles stopped, boots hit the ground. A squad of alien soldiers entered the ruins, their rifles sweeping the shadows. The girl's heart pounded. She could call out. One shout, and they would turn their weapons on the human. He would die, and she would be free. The thought burned in her mind, but her lips would not move. She stayed frozen, her eyes locked on the human's hand as it gripped his weapon tightly. The enemy soldiers passed dangerously close. One even paused, his helmet turning toward their hiding place. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She waited for discovery. The human raised his rifle slowly, ready to fire. But then the soldier turned away, moving on. The patrol's voices grew distant, the vehicles roaring again as they moved down the broken street. When the sound finally faded, the soldier lowered his weapon and released a long, slow breath. The alien girl realized her heart was beating too fast. She was alive because of him. Again, and worse, he had trusted her not to betray him. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "You knew? I could have called them." "Yes," he said simply, not looking at her. "Then why didn't you kill me before they came?" He finally turned, his eyes steady, calm as stone. "Because I didn't think you would." His words struck her harder than any blow. He believed she would stay silent. He had placed his life in her hands, even when he had no reason to. No one had ever trusted her like that. Not her people, not her leaders, not even her family. She wanted to laugh, to call him foolish. But the words wouldn't come. Her throat was too tight. As they continued forward, the sun burned above them, and their shadows stretched side by side across the ruined ground. Each step she took felt heavier with confusion. The enemy she had sworn to hate had saved her more than once, and now he had shown her trust. She should despise him, but her heart betrayed her with a strange warmth she could not understand. Later that evening, they found shelter in a collapsed building. The soldier built a small fire, shielding the smoke as best as he could. The warmth spread between them in the darkness. She watched him quietly, her sharp eyes softer than before. "You are strange," she said at last. "Your kind is strange. You fight like beasts but act like—" She trailed off, unable to finish. He looked at her across the fire. "And you are not what I was told either." The silence returned, but this time it was different. Not heavy, not hateful. Something fragile had formed in the ashes of war, and neither of them knew what to do with it. The alien girl lay down, pretending to rest, but her mind refused to sleep. She kept thinking of his words, his trust, his strange choices. For the first time in her life, she began to wonder if everything she had been taught about humans was wrong. And that thought frightened her more than death. The night was deep and heavy, with only the sound of the fire crackling softly in the corner of the ruined building. The human soldier sat with his back against the wall, his rifle across his lap, his eyes scanning the shadows as if sleep was a luxury he could never afford. The alien girl lay close to the fire, her body curled slightly for warmth. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence between them was not like before. It felt restless, full of unspoken words waiting to break free. The girl stared into the flames, her mind racing. She had grown up hearing stories of humans, how cruel they were, how they destroyed without hesitation, how they saw her people as nothing but beasts. And yet, the one sitting across from her did not match those stories. He had spared her life, shared his water, protected her from his own soldiers, and even risked death when the patrol passed. She tried to hate him, but the hate cracked every time she remembered his calm eyes. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but steady. "Do you know why I was on that battlefield?" The soldier glanced at her, but said nothing, waiting. She swallowed, her throat tight. "I was not there to kill for glory. I was ordered. My people, they do not give us choices. They say we must serve, or our families suffer." The soldier's eyes narrowed slightly, but he stayed silent. She took a shaky breath, surprised she was even speaking these words. "I had a sister, younger than me. She was weak, always sick. They told me if I fought, they would give her medicine. If I refused—" Her voice broke for a moment, then hardened. She would die. Her hands trembled as she clenched them together. She hated showing weakness in front of him, yet the words poured out as if they had been trapped inside her for years. "So I fought. I killed. I became what they wanted. And every night I told myself it was for her." She turned her face away, ashamed of the wetness in her eyes. But she died anyway. The fire crackled louder in the silence that followed. The human soldier's chest tightened as he listened. He had seen many enemies, many who fought without mercy. But this confession was different. It was not hatred that had driven her, but desperation. The girl laughed bitterly, though her voice shook. "Do you understand now, human, why I hate your kind? Because when we fight you, when we bleed and die, it is never just our choice. It is survival. And still, your people look at us as monsters." The soldier finally spoke, his tone calm but heavy. "I was told the same about your people, that you are merciless, that you take joy in killing, that sparing you is a mistake." He paused, meeting her eyes. "But then I saw you." Her breath caught. She wanted to argue, to deny the meaning in his words, but she couldn't. His gaze was not full of judgment, only truth. For a long time she stared at him, trying to find anger, but instead she felt something else. Something she had not felt in years. Someone was listening to her, truly listening. She looked back at the fire, her voice softer now. "When you pointed your weapon at me, I thought maybe it would be easier if you killed me. No more chains, no more orders, no more pain." She swallowed hard. "But you didn't. And now I do not know what I am supposed to feel." The soldier shifted, placing his rifle aside for a moment. His hand brushed the floor as if grounding himself in the cold earth. "Maybe you're not supposed to know. Maybe it's enough that you're alive right now." Her eyes widened slightly. No one had ever told her it was enough to just exist. Her people demanded obedience. Her commanders demanded blood. But this human, he demanded nothing. The firelight flickered across her face as she studied him. "You are strange," she whispered, almost to herself. "You fight like a warrior, but speak like a healer." He almost smiled, though it was brief and tired. "Or maybe I am just a man who's seen too much death." The girl lowered her head, her chest heavy with a mix of guilt and relief. She thought about her sister's face, her laughter, the way her small hands clung to her before she left for war. She thought about how powerless she had been to protect her. And now, sitting here with an enemy, she felt more understood than she ever had among her own people. For the first time, she wanted to ask him something more. "Why did you spare me?" The question came out raw, full of emotion she could no longer hide. The soldier looked into the fire, his expression unreadable. "Because I was tired of killing." His voice was quiet but firm. "And because when I looked at you, I didn't see a monster. I saw someone who wanted to live, even if you didn't admit it." Her breath hitched. His words pierced through every wall she had built. She turned her face away quickly, hiding her expression, but her heart raced in her chest. That night, she did not sleep. She lay awake, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing, watching the way the firelight danced on his tired face. For the first time, she felt safe beside someone she was supposed to hate. And it terrified her more than any battle ever had. The next day, the air was heavy with tension. The human soldier and the alien girl moved carefully through the ruins, their steps quiet, their eyes alert. Both knew they could not stay in one place for long. The war still raged around them, and danger waited in every corner. The girl walked a little behind him, her thoughts twisted and restless. She had told him things she had never shared with anyone, things about her sister, her pain, her hate. And instead of mocking her, instead of using her weakness against her, he had only listened. That memory clung to her heart like a thorn. But with every step, a darker thought grew in her mind. She was still his enemy. If her people found her alive with him, they would demand answers. They would call her a traitor. Maybe they would kill her, maybe worse. The easiest path was betrayal. If she turned on him now, if she lured him into a trap, her honor might return. Her people might forgive her. That thought gnawed at her like hunger. The human soldier seemed unaware of her inner conflict. He walked steadily, guiding them toward the outskirts of the ruined city. His calmness irritated her. Why did he trust her so much? Why did he never look over his shoulder, never treat her as a threat? Did he not know she could slit his throat the moment he slept? Or did he simply not care? By noon, they stopped in an old factory for shelter. The soldier searched the building, checking corners and broken machines, while she sat quietly against the wall. Her eyes followed his every move, but her hands twitched with a decision she could not make. Her heart beat faster, and her mind screamed at her, "Betray him now. End this confusion. Prove to yourself that you are still loyal to your people." When he returned, he gave her a small piece of bread. She stared at it for a long time before taking it. Her lips moved before she could stop herself. "Why do you keep feeding me?" He looked at her plainly. "Because you're alive." The simplicity of his answer crushed the walls she had built again. She almost wished he had said something arrogant, something she could hate. But no, he only gave her honesty, and that honesty made betrayal harder. Later, as they rested, the sound of movement echoed outside. The girl's heart leapt. Her people. Voices she knew, soldiers of her kind moving through the area. She could hear their sharp language, their weapons ready, their boots striking the ground. This was her chance. She could call out, and they would come. The human would be killed instantly, and she would be free. Her people might even praise her for surviving long enough to deliver him to them. Her lips parted, her breath shallow. She almost shouted. But then her eyes moved to the human soldier. He was crouched by the window, weapon ready, his body tense. He had no idea she was thinking of betraying him. And yet, he had placed his life in her hands once again, without fear, without doubt. The soldiers outside drew closer. She felt her throat tighten. The words hovered there, waiting to be released. Just one cry, and everything would change. She would be free from the strange chain of mercy and trust that bound her to him. But she could not do it. The sound died in her throat. Her fists clenched, her nails digging into her palms, but she stayed silent. The patrol passed by, their voices fading. The human soldier slowly lowered his weapon and let out a quiet breath. He turned to her, his expression calm. "You didn't call them." Her eyes widened. She felt caught, exposed. You knew I thought about it? He nodded once. Of course. Anger and shame burned inside her. Then why didn't you stop me? She demanded. Because I trusted you, he said simply. The words broke her. She wanted to scream at him, tell him he was a fool, tell him trust meant nothing in war. But her voice trembled, and nothing came out. For the first time in her life, she realized she had chosen not to betray someone. Not because she feared punishment, not because she hoped for reward, but because she wanted to keep his trust. That night, she lay awake, her mind spinning. Her people would never understand. If they found her, they would see only weakness in her silence. But she no longer cared as much as she should. His trust had planted something inside her, something dangerous but undeniable. When she closed her eyes, she remembered the way he had stood in front of her when his comrades wanted her dead. She remembered the way he had shared water, food, and silence without judgment. And now, when she had the chance to destroy him, she had chosen not to. It terrified her because she realized the truth. She was no longer just his prisoner. She was bound to him by something stronger than chains, by choice. The ruins grew darker as evening came, and the sky turned gray with storm clouds. The soldier and the alien girl moved through the broken streets carefully, but the silence between them was not the same as before. Something had changed. She had stayed quiet when her people passed. She had not betrayed him. And though she told herself it meant nothing, her heart whispered otherwise. They reached the edge of the ruined district, where the building's thinned and twisted metal towers stood like skeletons. The soldier slowed his steps, his eyes scanning the distance. He knew this place was dangerous. Traps were often hidden here, set by both humans and aliens, waiting for careless feet. The girl felt unease in her chest. She knew her people's tricks. She had walked battlefields like this before, and death often hid in silence. Then it happened. The ground beneath them shifted with a metallic snap. Before she could speak, the earth exploded upward, and sharp nets of glowing wire shot from the ground. The trap had been triggered. The soldier shoved her back, his body covering hers as the wires snapped and tightened around them. They hit the ground hard, dust filling the air. Sparks hissed from the trap, the wire biting into their clothes and skin. The girl gasped, struggling to move, but the more she fought, the tighter the trap pulled. She looked at him. His body was pressed against hers, his arms pushing against the wire, blood dripping where the sharp edges cut into his flesh. He gritted his teeth, his breath ragged, but he did not stop. "Stop moving," she hissed. "You'll only make it worse." "I can break it," he said, his voice strained. He pushed harder, ignoring the pain. "You can't," she snapped. "This trap was made for soldiers like you. It only tightens with strength." Her eyes burned with frustration. "Why did you cover me? You fool, you should have saved yourself." His eyes met hers, steady even through the pain. "Because I chose to." Her chest tightened. Even now, bleeding, caught in a trap, he still thought first of her. She could not understand it. Her people would never do such a thing. To them, weakness was discarded and survival was personal. Yet here he was, ready to die if it meant she lived a moment longer. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Shadows moved between the ruins. The girl's blood ran cold. She recognized the sound of armor and weapons. Her people were coming. Her eyes darted back to him. "We have to get out of this trap now." He shook his head, still straining against the wire. "Go. If you can free yourself, run." She stared at him in disbelief. "And leave you? They'll tear you apart." "Better me than both of us," he said quietly. Something inside her snapped. She would not let him die like this, not after everything. She pulled herself closer, ignoring the wires cutting into her arms. Her hands worked quickly, searching for the small lock at the base of the trap. She remembered her training, how the mechanism was hidden, how only those who set it knew where to touch. Her fingers finally found the faint notch under the wires. She pressed hard, twisting, and the wires loosened with a sharp crack. The soldier gasped as the pressure released. Together, they pushed free of the glowing net, falling hard onto the ground. Blood ran down their arms and legs, but they were alive. The footsteps grew louder. Soldiers in alien armor appeared at the end of the street, their weapons raised. The girl froze. She knew their faces, their markings. They were her people, and if they saw her with the human, they would kill him instantly. Worse, they would kill her too for failing to return as a loyal warrior. The human soldier raised his rifle, his body ready to fight though his arms shook from blood loss. She grabbed his wrist. "No, you won't survive this." He gave her a faint, grim smile. "Doesn't matter. I'll hold them off long enough for you to escape." Her throat tightened. She should have let him. It would have been the easy choice. But when she looked at him, standing there ready to die for her, she couldn't. "No," she whispered, her hand trembling. "Not this time. If you fight, I fight too." He looked at her, surprised, but before he could speak, the alien soldiers spotted them. Shouts filled the air, weapons raised. The girl stepped forward, her voice rising above the chaos. "She's alive," one soldier shouted. "But she's with a human." Her blade flashed before he could finish. She moved faster than they expected, striking one soldier down. The others froze in shock. They did not understand why she was fighting beside him. She barely understood it herself. All she knew was that she could not let him fall. Together, side by side, human and alien fought. He fired his rifle with deadly accuracy, every shot covering her movements. She struck with speed and fury, cutting through confusion before it could become fire. For the first time, she was not fighting against him. She was fighting with him. The last soldier fell, the street echoing with silence again. The girl stood trembling, her chest heaving, her blade dripping. The human lowered his rifle slowly, his eyes on her. "You didn't have to do that," he said, his voice hoarse. Her hands shook as she gripped her weapon tighter. "I know," she whispered. Her eyes met his, wide and burning with emotion she could not name. "But I chose to." The storm finally broke above them, rain falling hard, washing blood from the streets. She felt it on her skin, cold and sharp, but inside her chest burned with something warm and terrifying. For the first time, she had fought not for her people, not for orders, not even for survival. She had fought for him. The rain poured down, washing the blood from their wounds and soaking their torn clothes. The human soldier leaned against a broken wall, his chest rising and falling heavily. The alien girl stood close, her blade still in her hand, her eyes fixed on him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer the silence of strangers. It was heavy with everything they had survived together. The girl's heart pounded. She could not stop thinking about what had just happened. She had chosen to fight for him, not against him. Her people's soldiers had died by her hand, not his. She should have felt guilt, shame, maybe fear of punishment. But all she felt was strange relief. She had saved him. She had saved the man who should have killed her the day he found her. The soldier winced, pressing a hand against his bleeding arm. She rushed forward without thinking, tearing a strip of cloth from her cloak and tying it tightly around the wound. Her hands shook, but she did not stop. He looked at her with tired eyes, his lips parting as if to speak, but he said nothing. He only let her finish. When she pulled back, her voice came low. "You should have killed me that day." His eyes met hers, steady even through exhaustion. "Maybe, but I didn't." "Why?" she asked again, her voice almost a whisper. "Why did you keep me alive, even when it put you in danger?" He drew in a slow breath, rain dripping from his hair. "Because I saw something in you. Not a monster, not an enemy, just someone who wanted a chance to live." Her chest tightened painfully. No one had ever spoken to her like that. To her people, she was a tool, a weapon, a soldier to be used and discarded. To him, she was something else, someone worth sparing, worth protecting, even trusting. The realization left her speechless. She lowered her blade, letting it fall to the ground with a sharp clang. Her knees weakened, and she sank down in front of him, her eyes burning. "You've taken everything I thought I knew and shattered it," she said. "My people would have killed you without hesitation. Even I wanted to. But you did the opposite. You gave me life when you had every reason to end it." He reached out, his rough, blood-stained hand lifting her chin gently so she would meet his eyes. "And what do you want now?" The question struck her deeper than any blade. What did she want? All her life she had only followed orders, fought for survival, lived for the hope of saving her sister. But her sister was gone, and the chains of her people felt weaker than ever. For the first time, she felt the weight of choice. Her lips trembled. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I know this. I don't want to be your enemy anymore." The soldier's eyes softened, and for a moment, she thought she saw relief in them. He gave a small nod, as if he had been waiting for those words all along. The rain began to ease, the storm fading into soft drizzles. The city around them lay broken, but for the first time, it did not feel like just ruins. It felt like the beginning of something new. But danger was never far. In the distance, more voices echoed, human soldiers moving through the wreckage. The girl stiffened, fear crawling into her chest. If they saw her alive, standing with him, they would not hesitate. They would kill her instantly, and maybe him as well for protecting her. The soldier saw the panic in her eyes and stood tall, his voice calm. "Stay behind me." She shook her head. "No. If they see me, they'll kill us both." "Then let me speak," he said firmly. "Let me carry this." She stared at him, stunned. He was willing to risk everything, his honor, his life, even his place among his own people, for her. She wanted to protest, but the words would not come. Her throat closed with emotion, and she could only nod. When the soldiers arrived, they saw her instantly. Their rifles rose, their eyes wide with fury. "Why is she still alive?" one demanded. "End her now." The human soldier stepped forward, his voice strong despite his wounds. "No, she stays with me." The others shouted in outrage, calling him insane, a traitor, a fool. But he did not move. His body was a wall between them and her, just as it had been before. This time, however, the alien girl did not stay silent. She stepped forward too, standing at his side. The soldier's eyes widened in disbelief. She should have run. She should have fought. Instead, she stood there, unarmed, beside him. The choice was clear in her eyes. "She had every chance to kill me," the soldier said loudly. "And she didn't. She fought with me, not against me. She saved my life." The soldiers hesitated, their anger mixing with confusion. No one knew what to say. The rules were clear, but this was not something the rules had ever imagined. The alien girl felt her chest rise with courage. For once, she did not care about her people's orders or her past. She only cared about the man standing beside her. The one who had given her life, trust, and something more powerful than hate, respect. The soldiers slowly lowered their rifles, though their faces were full of disbelief. None of them understood what had just begun. As the night fell and the storm faded, the alien girl turned to the human soldier, her eyes shining in the dim light. "You should have killed me," she whispered again, her voice trembling. He looked at her, his gaze steady, his words soft but certain. "No, I should have trusted you, and I did." Her breath caught, and for the first time she could not hold back the truth in her heart. He had changed her world with that single choice, and though the war still raged outside, inside her something new had been born, something she would never let go of again.